All right. So we are now reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we're on the date November 26th, 1883. We're starting a new date this evening, and we were touching a little bit, that Sri Ramakrishna last week was talking about how what was that thing? When the heart becomes pure through practice of spiritual discipline, then one rightly feels that God alone is the doer. So this is one of the things that will begin to happen as we do our inner practice. And what is that inner practice? As it's focusing that light of awareness within yourself and finding out where you are in there by identifying what you are not. You can't tell where you are in there because you are that. You can just look around and say, oh, look, clearly I'm not the mind. But not, we shouldn't be willing to say that without knowing that, without having an experience of that, without knowing why we're not the mind. And so we go in and do our spiritual practice so we can identify what is mind and what is my relationship to mind if I am not the mind. And then the same thing with body, to go inside and find, okay, where does the body connect in with my sense of being? And the quick and easy pointer is that since both of those entities, the mind and the body, have to report to you, they have to tell you how they are and how they feel and what they want and what they need, then it's obvious they are not you, because the things of you don't need to be told to you. They are things you know before being told. And the fact that we have a third party perspective to both the body and mind. We watch our thoughts, right? And we can watch our body as well. You can watch yourself eat. You can disassociate yourself from the process of eating. And so these internal awarenesses, so that's what spiritual practice is. It's going inside and becoming aware of your inner world, and sorting out who you are in there. And that's for the path of Jnani. That's the practice. For the Bhakta, it's the same thing, except that the sense um, of knowing that you begin to have, you call God. The sense of bliss that you begin to become aware of in that inner silence, you name the beloved, the divine. And so it becomes a communion for the Bhakta. It becomes a communion with the divine, with the beloved. And so you go into that inner shrine and you worship, which is to just simply be in the presence. Worship is what happens when one is in the presence of the divine, of the beloved. Anything that you do with the awareness of the beloved is in fact worship. And so that is how life becomes worship, simply by you being aware of the divine presence within you all the time. And the one of the great realizations that Thakur talks about all the time is that knowing that you are not the doer, that you are the eternal witness, and that is what you are. And what do you get to witness? You get to witness God. You get to see the beloved's play in all of its facets. When you're deluded, you only get to experience it through you, through this body mind. But for someone who's free, they are everywhere, and it is beautiful. I'm thinking of there was a devotee down in Albuquerque last week for the retreat, and she was telling this story that was so beautiful. She had a very good friend who had passed away not more than a few months ago, and she said that she was thinking of her one day, and she said out loud to herself, I can't remember the woman's name. Uh, say Becky. She said, Becky, I wonder where you are. But what she was sharing to the group was that she distinctly heard Becky's voice say to her very clearly in her mind, I'm everywhere and it's wonderful. And she had such a beaming. It was so beautiful to see because it was a very close person to her and she had just lost her. And to see the joy that she had for that person being dead was wonderful to me. and to have that kind of spirit. So we grow in our spiritual life through that inner awareness, through our understanding. We know that we are the witness of the divine play, and that we are not the actor, we are not the doer. And when identity with the body and mind begins to fall away, then doership comes to an end, and it's simply you finally enter the present moment at that point. Until that time, you live on the edge of the past, because your ego is is the result of your identity with body mind, and the ego is completely built from the past.
Maharaj, can you
So,
repeat that one more time, please?
yes, that ego is what is born when you, the self, identifies with the body or with the mind, with a particular. That gives birth to the ego. The ego is sort of the infection that happens from wrong thinking. And so your ego is what blinds you to the reality. You can't see God through the ego, because the ego is the wall that you've created of separation. And when that ego begins to fade, begins to thin by your learning that you're not body mind, and by you watching the mind more objectively, then you begin to see the divine. You begin to know the divine, and your inner world actually subsumes the outer world, becomes bigger and more important and more experienced to you than the world of change. And that's what we've got to look forward to. Then we get to know God in the sense that he's always been there. And so we become the observer, and with with the love that silence allows us to become aware of, we expand. We expand infinitely into that. I don't know if I said again what you wanted me to say again, because I couldn't remember what I just said. So I did my best. November 26, 1883. It was the day of the annual festival of the Sinduriyapati Brahmo Samaj. The ceremony was to be performed in Manilal Malik's house. The worship hall was beautifully decorated with flowers, with wreaths, with evergreens, and many devotees were assembled, eagerly awaiting this worship. Their enthusiasm had been greatly heightened by the news that Sri Ramakrishna was going to grace the occasion with his presence. Yeah, you could have that same joy about your practice this evening. That Thakur, and if, of course, when Thakur was Jesus, he said, wherever two or more are gathered in my name, there I am also. So, just grab a quick other person and sit down and do a meditation, and then you can celebrate the presence of Thakur in your spiritual practice for the evening. So you can have this same anticipation, this same joy. Yes. And in that presence, in knowing that presence, you can ask your questions, lay out the questions, and then just sit in silence and have some communion with the divine. They were heightened by the news that Sri Ramakrishna was going to grace the occasion with his presence. Keshav, Vijay, Shivanath, and other leaders of the Brahmo Samaj held him in high respect. His God-intoxicated state of mind. I love that God-intoxicated state of mind. It looks like drunkenness. Often there was many times where people thought he was drunk, because he would weave when he walked, because he was just literally inundated with divine bliss. The material world was not the big thing for him. He was in the interior world and in touch with, directly experiencing Satchitananda. So constantly actually experiencing divine love without condition, actually experiencing an infinite divine wisdom that's spontaneously available in the moment, and spontaneously experiencing existence in the moment itself, being the moment itself, not being separate of the moment. And so no past, no future, the pure isness was that experience for him. his God intoxicated state of mind, his intense love of spiritual life. Yes, well, his intense love of life, because the way that you are in the world is what makes life spiritual life. If you can live in the presence, the constant awareness of the divine within you, that makes life spiritual. That becomes spiritual life. And that is where you get to enjoy this love that Ramakrishna and Vivekananda are enjoying just by being, right? Just by being. His God intoxicated state of mind, his intense love of spiritual life, his burning faith, burning faith, knowing what is real, our faith is an understanding of what we bring into this world with us. We've talked about that in the past, our notions of infinity, our notions, all the names of God, our notion of beauty, these things that we inherently know, that we don't have to learn from school, that we don't have to put into our heads to remember, those things that we know, the idea of immortality, the idea of infinity, the idea of an unconditioned love, anything that's perfect falls into that account, because the world can't have shown those to us. The world of the senses, the world of the material could not have placed those things into our mind. And so faith is holding on to those things. I am ever free. I am ever surrounded by love. My nature is love. My nature is wisdom. My nature is beauty. And to faith is simply naming those things and holding them as true, even though you don't have direct evidence in the material world for them, because they actually come in with you from spirit, these things, these knowings. And so faith is holding on to that, that I will never die. That's a matter of faith. That I've never been born is a matter of faith, and a matter of learning too, actually. And so this is what faith is. And he had the burning faith. He knew these things. He experienced them daily. I mean, his faith was, he had the faith to move mountains, just like he did in any other time that he came. So his burning faith, his intimate communion with God. That's just a nice one to think about, actually. Just to go silent. Just to go silent, and through your faith, experience the presence of God. Know that it exists. Know that everything is the divine. Everything that you're touching, tasting, hearing, smelling, or seeing is your beloved. Or that one, my favorite aspect of that is the one that Eckhart Tolle, with his realizing that love and light are the same thing. And so to sit here and open yourself up to being embraced by the light that's all around you, that is the embrace of God, the embrace of divinity. So his intense love of spiritual life, his burning faith, and his intimate communion with God, and his respect for women. Interesting that that's there, He had a deep, abiding respect for women as the Divine Mother, as the manifestation of the power of God. And so he saw every woman as his mother, because he did not want to fall into the mistake of seeing them as objects, or seeing them as something to be enjoyed or held onto or owned or manipulated, or whatever the common feelings that arise when one doesn't recognize someone as the divine, or the divine in someone else. So his wonderful respect for women, whom he regarded as veritable manifestations of the Divine Mother, together with the unsullied purity of his character. Right? The unsullied purity. What is that purity of character? It's a character that has no me and mine in it. So he never acted from the motivation of me or mine. Never did a single thing in his life for me and mine. He was always keeping his eyes out for others, always being aware of the need of others, always being aware of service. His very existence was for the love of the devotees. that he had no selfish motive whatsoever in himself. So this unsullied character of his complete renunciation of worldly talk. Yes. And what is worldly talk? Well, it's talk of me and minds, right? All of the things that have to do with the body and have to do with the mind, and all of the subsets of that, is worldly talk. So he wanted things that brought his attention back to that inner space, back to that divinity talk. He wanted conversations about beauty. He wanted conversations about renunciation, about knowledge, about practice, about strength, about love, about service. This is where he wanted to live. His complete renunciation of worldly talk, his love and respect for all religious faiths, and his eagerness to meet devotees of all creeds attracted the members of the Brahmo Samaj to him. Devotees came that day from far-off places to join the festival, for it would give them a chance to get a glimpse of the master and to listen to his inspiring talk, which, someone who can be described in the way that M just described the master. Can you imagine? You can't come up with a better obituary than that. To have somebody describe you like that, you would have been an amazing person to be around. You would have been an amazing person to be around. That's where our love of God comes from, actually. Is that ideal of seeing an ideal with no me in mind, no selfishness in it, a mind or an ideal that has no thought of itself and is only there to actively love, to be proactively loving, proactively caring, looking for opportunities to be helpful. So that's the divine that we pray to. That's the divine that we place our faith in. And we pray with that knowledge. It's not that God is to sit there and decide whether he's going to help you or not. God is actively, even without you asking, putting together a life that's perfect for you. And this is what that love of God allows us to accept. It allows us to experience a moment as perfection, because we know that this moment was designed for our perfect being, to bring us to an awareness of our true nature. Right? Sri Ramakrishna arrived at the house before the worship began and became engaged in conversation with Vijay Krishna Goswami and the other devotees. The lamps were lighted and the divine service was about to begin. The master asked if Shivanath would come to the festival. A Brahmo devotee said that he had other important things to do and wasn't coming. That would be a drag. To have Ramakrishna looking forward to see you and you didn't show because you had other very important things to be doing. That's a bummer. The master, I feel very happy when I see Shivanath. He always seems to be absorbed in the bliss of bhakti. Further, a man who is respected by so many surely possesses some divine power. But he has one great defect. He doesn't keep his word. Ouch. Once he said to me that he would come to Dakshineshwar, but he neither came nor sent word. That is not good. It is said that truthfulness alone constitutes the spiritual discipline of the Kali Yuga. That's an important statement. In this time of the Kali Yuga, with all of this insanity going on in the world around us, at every level, it seems these days, that truthfulness is the sadhana of today, which means being a person of integrity, being a person who does what they say. You don't have that California flakiness. You're not like, yeah, okay, well, we should see each other sometime. Oh my God, call me. Have your people call my people. We'll do something. That kind of flighty, insincere, shallow existence, the spiritual practice for these days is to be a person of substance, to be a person whose mind, whose thoughts, whose speech, and whose action is in alignment, that they all back each other up. That is the spiritual sadhana that's necessary in this time, right? In the time of fake news, in the time of misinformation, in the time of rumors and exploitation everywhere. At this time, it's time for us to be people of substance, people of sincerity, people of earnestness. Once he said to me that he would come to Dakshineshwar, but he neither came nor sent word. That is not good. It is said that truthfulness alone constitutes the spiritual discipline of the Kali Yuga. If a man clings tenaciously to truth, he ultimately realizes God. Right, there it is. You want to realize God? Cling tenaciously to truth, right? And what is the truth? That you are ever free, ever beloved of God. You are not this body. You are not this mind. You've never been born. You're never going to die. You know, that you walk always surrounded by God in everything that you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. That's the hard part. It's the most beautiful hard part we could come up with there. Without this regard for truth, one gradually loses everything. If by chance I say that I will go to the pine grove, I must go there, even if there is no further need of it, lest I lose my attachment to truth. After my vision of the Divine Mother, I prayed to her, taking a flower in my hands, Mother, here is your knowledge and here is your ignorance. Take them both and give me only pure love. Here is your holiness, and here is your unholiness. Take them both, Mother, and give me pure love. Here is your good, and here is your evil. Take them both. Give me pure love. Here is your righteousness, and here is your unrighteousness. Take them both. And Mother, give me pure love. I mentioned all these, but I could not say, Mother, here is your truth and here is your falsehood. Take them both. I gave up everything at her feet, but I could not bring myself to give up truth. Right? So truth is very important. That inner integrity, that inner awareness, that inner alignment, that acting in accordance to what you are, in accordance with love, in accordance with being, in accordance with wisdom. Right? This is what it is to practice truth in this age of the Kali Yuga. Soon the service began according to the rules of the Brahmo Samaj. The preacher was seated on the dais. After the opening prayer, he recited holy texts of the Vedas and was joined by the congregation in the invocation to the Supreme Brahman. They chanted in chorus, Brahman is truth, knowledge, and infinity. It shines as bliss and immortality. Brahman is peace, blessedness, the one without a second. It is pure and unstained by sin. The minds of the devotees were stilled, and they closed their eyes in meditation. So to have that chant, to be reminded in that moment of these truths, that Brahman is truth. So the thought of God, the awareness of God, is a source of truth, because the awareness is kind of the comb for the soul. Being aware of God combs the tangles out of the soul, takes away those knots of confusion. That which Prabhupada told me, that the knots of Maya untie themselves in the light of awareness, right? Because that awareness will show you Satchitananda in yourself. It will show you that you are made of love. It will show you that you are composed of wisdom. And it will show you that existence, that all of these are the presence of your beloved in you. And so this is that awareness. Brahman is truth and knowledge. What is that knowledge? That knowledge of oneness. that knowledge of God in all things, everywhere present, and God and in infinity. It shines as bliss and immortality. So going inside, finding that bliss, which happens in the silence of the mind, when you're not distracted by your thinking anymore, when you're not addicted to a noisy mind, in that stillness, you will find this beautiful bliss and immortality. By knowing that you're not the mind and knowing that you're not the body, you find that there's no other thing for you to be, right? And you see that you are not a thing, that you really can't describe that inner silence, that inner peace. It is the potential of every attribute without being any particular attribute. It's ever free. It's every story that's being told in every life around the world at this moment. It's the same I. It's that self within. And so going in and detaching yourself from the identity of a particular, right? Just being silent, just kind of stepping back from all of the things that you know not to be yourself, you're left with that same pure mind, unstained by sin, unstained by selfishness, unstained by seeing yourself as separate and apart from the whole, right? But understanding intuitively and innately that you are everything. And so everything is an act of love at that point, which is pure empathy. Empathy is when you don't think you are that, but you can identify with what it would be like to be that. Pure empathy, here's a new spiritual term that we're making up. This pure empathy is when you know yourself to be everything. When it's not a practice anymore. It's the reality for you. You know, so like when Nisargadatta says you see someone suffering, you don't see someone suffering, you suffer because you know yourself to be them. And you know yourself to be in that perspective as well as every perspective that you encounter. So the minds of the devotees were stilled and they closed their eyes in meditation. And the master went into a deep samadhi. Right? So he actually went into that space where there was no I anymore, you know, that merging. So he knew himself to be that indescribable, unnamed reality. He sat there transfixed and speechless. After some time, he opened his eyes, looked around, and suddenly stood up with the words, Brahma, Brahma, on his lips. Soon the devotional music began, right? Brahma is the creator God, you know, so that was the first thing he sees as he comes in from the absolute, as he kind of descends through that spiritual progression into body. The first thing he sees is the creation, you know, the creator divine. Soon the devotional music began, accompanied by the drums and the cymbals. In a state of divine fervor, the master began to dance with the devotees. Vijay and the other Brahmos danced around him. The guests and the devotees, they were enchanted. Many of them drank the sweet bliss of God's name and forgot the world. The happiness of the material world appeared bitter to them, at least for the time being. After that kirtan, all sat around the master, eager to hear his words. What a cool get-together. This is the goal of every get-together that we do. This is actually the goal of every meditation, just to sit there in that divine presence, that divine bliss, to enjoy God. You know, to enjoy God. That's when you know you're having a good meditation, when you're actually enjoying the presence, enjoying God. The master. It is difficult to lead the life of a householder in a spiritual detachment. Once Pratap said to me, Sir, we follow the example of King Janaka. He led the life of a householder in a detached spirit, We shall follow him. I said to him, can one be like King Janaka by merely wishing it? How many austerities he practiced in order to acquire this divine knowledge. He practiced the most intense form of asceticism for many years, and only then returned to the life of the world. Right? And so even the householder life requires a great deal of practice, a great deal even of ascetic practice, denying your will of things, learning to control the body, learning to control the mind, right? Which really means pulling your identity out of them, because they automatically fall into line when you don't connect your battery, your I to them. It's your I that gives them power, that gives them sentience. When you're sitting there thinking, you're playing the role of two people. And sometimes you'll have 3 or 4 or 5 people in there talking in your mind at the same time. Each one of those voices is an attachment of yours. Each one of those voices come from something that you have attached your I to. And that I is giving those voices sentience. It's giving those voices meaning to you. It makes them argue. It makes them disobey. It makes them agree or disagree, in all kinds of ways. And so normally when we think of controlling the mind, we think of going in there and slapping around a bunch of voices to get them to be quiet. Not necessary. You don't have to slap anybody around in there. You don't have to be mean to yourself at all. You can actually sit down and just remember, if I just withdraw my attachment to the body will actually become healthier. It will actually become balanced. If I withdraw my sense of I from the mind, it will naturally become healthier. It will become balanced, right? And so it's through this chanting of God's name, which is what? That keeping our mind, keeping the attachments to mind and body at bay by keeping our attention on the divine presence within. That presence which is ourself as the witness. But in that time when ego exists, we call that presence God. And so God allows us to keep a semblance of ego. Thakur says that doesn't hurt us. God doesn't mind. If you keep a sense of I that's separate from him, to enjoy him and to enjoy that presence, that's fine. Mother gives you full permission to have that sense of I. You don't need to get rid of that. Just enjoy Mother, enjoy God, enjoy the divine, enjoy Buddha, Rama, Krishna, all of them together, or any one of them at a time. It's up to you. So that's fine. All right. So he says that this life of the household is very difficult, and of course, all of us want to have the life of the householder with permission, right? With license. Like, oh, well, I can own nice things. I can buy nice things. I can spend money on enjoyment, and I can realize God. It's like we kind of want to keep a hand on both plows going in opposite directions. And Ramakrishna is just saying, look, just saying that you want to be like Janaka isn't going to do it. Janaka had to work. He had to very hard. He had to really work at detaching. He had to really pay attention. And he went through a lot of ascetic practices, in order to learn to control the mind, So you take a cold shower because it's a great way to detach from the body, because the body doesn't want a cold shower. So if you identify with the body's going to become sentient, and it's going to say, I don't want a cold shower. Get me out of here right now. It's freezing cold. But if you withdraw your identity from that mind, the body will accept a cold shower. The body can get accustomed. The body can get accustomed because the body itself is relative, right? That's why when you jump in that cold pool in the summer, it's freezing cold when you first jump in. But if you can manage to stay in there for at least 10 seconds, the body adjusts. It accepts the cold. You see, and so that practice of non-resistance, that's a great way to do it, because you realize when you press against something, that's when you emphasize its feeling. So like if you're hurting, if you're constantly thinking, oh God, you resist the hurting, you resist it, then that hurting stays at the forefront of your experience. If you accept it, if you invite it in, as a friend, Hafiz says, invite every moment and all of it, all of the guests that the moment brings, accept them, invite them in. uh, Thich Nhat Hanh says, about all of those experiences. You should say, he had a twofold formula. He said you should say to them, "I hear you. I hear what you're saying, and I am here to be with you." Right. And so even in your own mind, when you're going through painful times, when you're not happy, when you're in depression, when whatever is going on, anxiety, anything like that, or in the body when it's sick or when it's in pain or it's healing, you go in and you say to it, "I hear you. I hear you. And I'm here to be with you." And it's a wonderful way of being, because then you know yourself not to be the body, and yet you set yourself up in a beautiful relationship with the body, one of support, one of caring, one of nurturing. Same thing with the mind. You don't oppose the mind. You say, "I hear you. I'm listening. I hear what you're saying. And I'm here to be with you." And when you say, "I'm here to be with you," you're talking about Satchitananda. So you know that you're saying, "I'm here to love you. I'm here to nurture you. I'm here to do the right thing in wisdom. And I'm doing it right now. This moment contains us." So you have that attitude toward your inner self, toward the body and toward the mind. And you know that love you have to offer flows infinitely from you, because you become aware of that as the mind silences. And then the world around you just becomes an extension of you. As the body is yours, so the world is yours. Right? It's yours to be with, and to hear and to be with. Right? So this is that experience of being. He practiced the most intense form of asceticism for many years, and only then did he return to the life of the world. Is there then no hope for householders? Certainly there is. They must practice spiritual discipline in solitude for some days. Thus they will acquire knowledge and devotion. Then it will not hurt them to lead the life of the world. But when you practice discipline in solitude, keep yourself entirely away from your family. You must not allow your wife, your son, daughter, mother, father, sister, brother, friends, or relatives near you. While thus practicing discipline in solitude, you should think, "I have no one else in the world. God is my all." You must pray to him with tears in your eyes for knowledge and devotion. If you ask me how long you should live in solitude away from your family, I should say that it would be good for you if you could spend even one day in such a manner. 3 days at a time are still better. One may live in solitude for 12 days, a month, 3 months, or a year, according to one's convenience and one's ability. One hasn't much to fear if one leads the life of a householder after attaining this knowledge and devotion. What knowledge? That you are not the body or any of its relationships to others. You are not the mind or any of its relationships to anything else. That you are ever free and ever pure. That's the knowledge that you're going after. And this devotion that comes to you comes naturally, because in that silence that follows that knowledge of who you are, you become aware of this white noise hum of pure bliss and pure love, that manifests in you, this infinite wisdom that manifests in you. And so through that awareness, once you have touched that, once you have found that out about yourself by observing your inner life in a very careful awareness, then you don't have to worry. The world's not going to be able to catch you, because you've got an idea. No matter how slight it is, doesn't matter. Even if you just touch it once for a split second, that will be enough to anchor you and to take you forward, if you nurture it, if you're careful with it. Don't jump back into the world and start up the party schedule right away, because now you're safe. You just had a moment's great meditation. Nurture it with silence, but you're safe. The touch of the divine is there. If you break a jackfruit after rubbing your hands with oil, then the sticky milk will not smear your hands. While playing the game of hide and seek, you are safe if you but once touch the granny. Be turned into gold by touching the philosopher's stone. After that, you may remain buried underground 1,000 years. When you are taken out, you will still be gold. All right. This is that amazing ability to create gold out of the moment. Right. This is what Swami Prabhupada taught about karma to me one day at the dinner table. I share it often because it's a wonderful way of understanding karma, because it's a way that leads you to light. You know, he told me karma is not used to explain what has happened to you. He said karma is not what happens to you. Your karma is determined by what you are able to do with what happens to you. You know, he said, if you think that a man losing his ability to walk is bad karma, then you give a value to walking. He said, conditions and circumstances do not contain values. You assign the values, and they can be a negative thing for you, or they can be a positive thing for you. Good karma allows you to take the moment as it is and to make it a positive thing, to make gold out of it. And you do that by learning what your nature is, that you are infinite love to give, to share, to spread freely, that you are wise in the moment, you know, and you do what is the best thing to do spontaneously, because it's your knowledge. It's what you are. And you do it in your being. Being is knowing you're immortal, right? If you come into that silence of the moment, separating yourself from body mind, or knowing your identity to not be body mind, you become aware of immortality. You become aware that time belongs to mind. Time does not belong to you. You are outside of time, right? And these are all little things that we come to know in piecemeal fashion. Sometimes the light comes on immediately for some folks, but for most of us, it's, you know, working our way through, working our way through. And so spend time, you know, this is something Swami Prabhupada also used to bemoan the fact, you know, that we had this wonderful retreat center in Olima, and that very rarely was it our own devotees that used it. It was always, you know, other people, outside people who didn't come to the center, who would use it for their own spiritual practices. And he would always bemoan that fact. Like, here we have this beautiful retreat that we use our own funds to pay for, and none of the householders are coming to come out here. And, you know, there's no charge. It's free. Come out for a day, come out for 2 days, come out for 3 days, you know, and spend that time. Actually, almost all of our Vedanta centers have these retreats available, you know, that you can make arrangements to go and to stay at these places. I was just at the one in Portland. Wow, you can't get that. That was beautiful. The one in San Francisco, 2,000 acres of forested woodland on the coast. Beautiful. You know, you can definitely get away from everything in 2,000 acres. So plan these times, you know, as much as you can manage, whatever you can come up with. You know, and the closer that you grow to God, Thakur makes a promise. He says, the closer you get to Mother, the more of your responsibilities she will take from you, right? She'll take more and more responsibility. So you'll have more and more time to do these things. And so use it wisely, you know, use your life wisely. Don't just don't do it, spend it on things that are keeping it going, that are keeping all the plates spinning in the air. Don't do it for that. You know, do it to know, what are you in your innermost silent self, and go there, because you can only know not by what your mind tells you. You can only know when nothing is telling you. When nothing is telling you who you are, then you will know who you are, simply through the experience of being. All right, so if you break a jackfruit open after rubbing your hands with oil, what is that oil? That's this knowledge. It's the japam, can be that oil. You know, the awareness of the presence can be that oil. You know, chanting scriptures can be that oil. seva, doing everything as service can be that oil. So awareness really is that oil. Be aware of your life. Be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And always keep it because of love, in the presence of love, and all will be well for you. The mind is like milk. If you keep the mind in the world, right, if you keep it attached to the senses, you keep it thinking about sensual things, he says, if you keep the mind in the world, which is like water, then the milk and the water will get mixed. You won't know what thoughts are yours and what thoughts are coming from the world. You know, it's like the mind will just present a mishmash of things. And because of your identity with it, you'll believe all of them. And then you'll be subject to them. And an uncontrolled mind, a mind where the self does not know its nature, is a mind of torture. You know, it's a mind that's constantly hungry, constantly needy, never secure, because it's based on ego, and the ego has no actual existence. The ego then will have to constantly work to prove to the world that it's good enough, big enough, it exists, it's strong, it's mighty, you know, and that's where our arrogance comes from. That's where our unkindness comes from. That's where our selfishness comes from. All from that. And so he's saying, don't do it. Don't keep the mind sitting in the world. Don't let the mind sit on sensual things. Don't let the mind sit in memory. You know, place the mind into the moment and place the mind into the manifestation of divine love in the moment, from your nature, from what you are. He says, that is why people keep milk in a quiet place and let it set into curd, and then churn butter from it. Likewise, through spiritual discipline practiced in solitude, churn the butter of knowledge and devotion from the milk of the mind. Then that butter can easily be kept in the water of the world. It will not get mixed up with the world. The mind will float detached on the water of the world. What a great little metaphor there. So just this awareness, create this awareness of what you are. See and experience the distance between you and mind and you and body. And in that quiet, notice the love that comes, that arises, that you become aware of, floating up from you don't know where, because you can't look at it. It's you, right? It's you that is emanating that. But since it's you, it can't be objectified. You can't put it outside of your senses and look at it. That's why you can only know who you are when nothing is telling you, right? So sure, do the practice, do the time, do the inner investigation, become aware all the time. And if you can't do that, just as often as you possibly can, and when you realize you've forgotten the divine presence, just bring your mind back onto it, like Brother Lawrence says. Don't give yourself a hard time about it. Don't kick yourself around the block for being stupid and forgetful. Just say, oh, I forgot you, Mother. Now we've remedied that. Let's go. And you don't look back again. You just go forward. That's spiritual life. That's how you accept grace. You don't treat yourself poorly because you're guilty. You don't bemoan your faults. You just simply recognize them, put the light of awareness on them, look at the Divine Mother, smile at grace, and stop looking at your faults. Move on. You know, just move on. Keep doing better. That's all. So through spiritual discipline, practiced in solitude, churn the butter of knowledge and devotion from the milk of the mind. Vijay had just returned from Gaya, where he had spent a long time in solitude and in holy company. He had put on the ochre robe of a monk and was in an exalted state of mind, always indrawn. He was sitting before the master with his head bent down, as if absorbed in some deep thought. Casting his benign glance on Vijay, the master said, Vijay, have you found your room? Let me tell you a parable. Isn't that interesting? You know, he's going to tell the parable here. I guess I should just let him do that. But it's a good way of thinking about it. Have you found your room? Meaning, have you found where you belong? You know, in here. Have you found the shrine of the heart? Have you found this divine love, this presence of the divine within you? That's your room. That's your home. Let me tell you a parable. Once two holy men, in the course of their wanderings, entered a city. One of them, with wandering eyes and his mouth agape, was looking at the marketplace, the stalls, and the buildings when he met his companion. The latter said, "You seem to be filled with wonder at the city. Where is your baggage?" He replied, "Well, first of all, I found a room. I put my things in it, and I locked the door and felt totally relieved. Now I'm going about the city enjoying all the fun." This is how you live life. This is what he's telling us. Find your room. This is your treasure. All the love that you are, all the wisdom that you are, being aware of being, the moment. This is your treasure. Lock it in the room of the heart, right? Always know that it's safe. And then live life. Enjoy everything that you're seeing, because you were able then to look through everything and see the face of the divine behind it. You look at the beautiful mountains and you know that it is the presence of God that makes them beautiful. You look at the intricacy of a flower and you deeply appreciate it because you know that it is the presence of the divine that has manifested that and has given it to you in this moment. And so you see, first check in at the inn, establish yourself firmly in the heart, firmly aware of the presence, firmly aware of your nature and not getting it confused with the material. And once you've done that, then enjoy life. It can't hurt you. It can't steal you away. It can't confuse you again. So this is what he's saying. So I am asking you, Vijay, if you have found your room. You see, the spring in Vijay's heart has been covered all these days, and now it is open. Wow. To be Vijay. What an amazing experience. All right.